Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday.
Lots going on this AM. So the president officially kicks off his re-election campaign today. We'll take a look at what his odds are to get back to the White House in 2020. And also, we've got some new developments with Iran that we're going to take a look at. But most importantly, Andrew Yang in the house.
That's right.
Yang Gang.
We will get into all of that on Rising. Good morning, everybody. Krystal, what is on your radar?
So there are some new developments in our escalating, low-grade, not yet military conflict with Iran. So the latest big news here is we are moving 1,000 more troops into the region. This the latest tit-for-tat response to Iranian attacks on tankers in the Gulf of Oman. We also have some new comments from the president this morning, laying out a little bit more of his thinking, such as that is, on Iran. So he actually called the attacks on the oil tankers very minor. On the other hand, when asked what situations would lead him to want to go to war with Iran, he said, "I would certainly go over nuclear weapons, and I would keep the other," a question mark, the other being basically protecting the ability of oil tankers to move freely through the Gulf of Oman. So listen, here's basically the gamble that the Trump administration is making through their policy of maximum pressure. The idea is that if we are tough enough on Iran, if we pressure them economically, we basically have been mounting an economic war on Iran already, that will bring them back to the negotiating table and we'll be able to get a better deal than what we were able to get under the Obama administration. The question is, what if that doesn't work? I mean, what is the end game here? We've already seen these series of escalating actions. Again, this tit for tat, back and forth, each one a little bit notched up in terms of intensity, in terms of force. You already have Senator Tom Cotton calling for retaliatory military strikes. What is the end game here if this doesn't bring Iran back to the table? And that, that's the dangerous waters that we're swimming in. They are assuming that this is going to lead to some sort of a diplomatic resolve, but it's not at all clear that that's what's going to happen.
At the same time, the Iranians aren't stupid. They know if they enrich a lot of uranium and they get to a nuclear breakout capability, they are going to get bombed with catastrophic result. They will lose their infrastructure. The president actually made it clear in that interview. He said, "I would certainly go over nuclear weapons."
Right.
That's a red line. It's over. So what do the Iranians do? They like to flirt with the line and they like to aggressively ramp up things in the non-nuclear sector. You probably see ballistic missile tests. You're going to see some of the harassment of the oil tankers in the Gulf. It's not just the United States which is ratcheting up the tension here, and the reason why is because the criminals in the IRGC and in the Iranian regime they're the ones who are suffering the most because they steal from the economy. It's not the Iranian people that are benefiting from any of the economic gains of the Iran deal. And I think one of the main challenges the Trump administration faces here, I was heartened by the president's comments by calling it very minor. That was a good thing,
That's
right?
encouraging.
You're like, wow, the
On the
president
other
doesn't
hand,
look at this as something that merits military action.
On the other hand, the red line is very troubling, especially since you have Iran already saying that they're going to violate the terms of the agreement, which you can hardly blame them for since we backed down of, and are going to begin enriching uranium outside of the bounds of that agreement. So again, where does this end? I mean, I don't see any signs that the Trump administration, either here or anywhere else in the world, has successfully laid the groundwork for any kind of a diplomatic resolve, for any kind of an agreement. I mean, under the Obama administration, I know you don't like that deal, but there was a lot of thoughtful work put in. It took a long time, right? This wasn't just to snap our fingers and it gets done.
Yeah.
This is a long process, and they haven't done any of the legwork. You look at the results in North Korea. I mean, that whole thing has been a disaster. They have gotten nowhere. North Korea isn't abiding by anything that they've said they're going to do. So I just have no confidence that this is actually going to work. And instead, we have continually ratcheting pressure going up and up and up. And yeah, the president says the attacks on the oil tankers are minor, but he also puts the possibility of war on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, war is always, this is a red line that's existed since the Bush administration. No U.S. administration since that time, including the Obama administration, has said that nuclear weapons by the Iranian regime are acceptable. And we should remember, the President Obama and his advisors lied to the American public about that deal. They said this will forever preclude Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Patently false. They have a breakout time. It was only a restriction of 10 to 15 years, depending on which particular part, with the desperate hope that by injecting billions into their economy, the nature of the regime will change and they'll become too reliant on the global financial system to go back to where they were. That's just ridiculous. That's not how the Iranians work. That's not how radical Islamists operate in terms of their government, and it was just a neoliberal fantasy. So I agree with the Trump administration tactics, but I do agree that in terms of their follow through with North Korea and in their diplomatic ability to get this done, that I'm not so sure about.
What are you taking a look at this morning?
Well, I'm taking a look at marijuana, and I'm specifically talking about reefer madness. Now, potheads love to caricature the 1930s film Reefer Madness, which showed children and teenagers smoking marijuana and going crazy. Well, it turns out there might have been a lot more truth to that film than there was to all the caricatures of it. 2 doctors in the New York Times are sounding the alarm about how marijuana damages young brains. States that legalize should set a minimum age of 25 or older. Doctors Kenneth Davis and Dr. Mary Jean Krieg write in the New York Times. Dr. Davis is the president and chief executive of the Mount Sinai Health System. Neither of these are people who don't know what they're talking about. One of the most important points that they make in this op-ed, sounding the alarm about the effect of marijuana on young developing brains, particularly on the measurable drop in IQ of those who use marijuana at least once a week, is that 2 wrongs don't make a right. That means that yes, cigarettes and alcohol are also bad. One of the most frustrating arguments from people who are pro-pot is say, oh, but you drink, or alcohol is legal and that kills lots of people. Yes, absolutely. It's a bad vice that's embedded within our culture. Does that mean we should normalize and create another bad vice and embed it within our culture and create dozens of different substances that teenagers are using? Legalization leads to normalization, and that is the important part that we're seeing. The Washington Post also has a new story out today, how potent pot, vulnerable teens trigger concerns in the first states to legalize marijuana. One of the major arguments that the pro-pot lobby made in legalization in Colorado and Seattle is that teen use would go down. Actually, it has jumped from 161 to 777 in terms of ER visits for catastrophic cases of marijuana use, particularly in the outbreak of psychosis, which new research links to widespread breakouts of schizophrenia because of marijuana. All of this goes to say that should marijuana be illegal with the social justice implications? Absolutely not. Should people be getting locked up and thrown away for life because of their use of marijuana or dealing marijuana? No. Does that mean it needs to be wholesale legalized? Absolutely not. There should be some effort in order to study the effect of marijuana while recognizing that any time that the substance is used by people who are under the age of 25, that their young brains may be at risk. We need to protect kids. So, Krystal, I know it's an esoteric thing to get into, and it's not exactly the news of the day, but these stories and these warnings from the doctors are dribbling out, and they're completely uncovered by so many people. We had Senator Tom Daschle on this show, shilling for the cannabis banking industry. We have John Boehner, who is doing profiles, smoking pot and advocating for. They have their pockets in some of the most influential people, or they have their hands in the pockets of the most influential people in this country, and it's crushing the research and the warnings from the actual medical community.
Okay, so I think there's 2 things. I think number one, sure, we should know what the dangers are, right? 100%. We should know what the dangers are. People should be educated about the dangers. It shouldn't be just this idea that it's completely harmless and totally non-addictive and there's never any problems, etc. However, there are many things beyond alcohol and cigarettes in our society that are bad for children, like sugar, right?
Yeah.
Like video games, like these frickin' things, right? That we don't regulate.
Control
and
them
just
all.
Because, control them all.
Yes.
I mean, that's just, to me, insane.
I don't think that's crazy.
That
Absolutely.
you're going to control all these things. And then, so that's the one piece. The other piece is is that even the best way to combat the, as you put it, the normalization of drug use? I mean, we have seen the results of our approach to the war on drugs, and they are absolutely catastrophic. I mean, just turning to the opioid crisis, we have been interdicting heroin for 100 freaking years.
Yes.
The shit doesn't work. Excuse my language. It doesn't work. And you look around the world, look at what Portugal has done as one example, right? They have decriminalized this, they've destigmatized it, they've made it into a public health concern instead of a criminal justice concern, and it has been so much better for the population. Overdose deaths are down. Drug rehab participation is way up. HIV transmission is way down. It has been a success. The way we do it has been so stupid and counterproductive.
I couldn't agree more. The current system is broken. It's terrible. It's actually responsible for rising marijuana use because we focus so much on the criminal justice aspect and not on the actual use and sounding the alarm to kids. It took a generation in this country to stop people from smoking, and still 25% of our population continues to smoke almost daily, including many people who pick up that habit as teenagers. It takes a recognition as a total society that this is bad for kids, and then hammering it home. And right now it's irresponsible for adults and for elected officials and former elected officials to shill because the pot industry wants access to the legal banking sector.
I mean,
that's what this is all about.
I look at this the same way. I could almost guarantee you that sugared soda does more damage to kids in this country than marijuana ever.
And I would be in favor of doing something about it.
And I do feel like it's disgusting when people shill on behalf of Coca-Cola. Wish they would sponsor us though. But I mean, I put it in the same category, right? I don't think those things should be illegal, but I think we should be honest about the science around it. I think people should know the risks. I think parents should know the risk, and kids should be educated appropriately.
I don't even think marijuana should necessarily be illegal, but something needs to be done about what's happening here instead of just papering it over so that people can have fun. That's not all that's going on.
I like fun. Next on Rising. On June 27th, presidential candidate Andrew Yang will debate with 9 other contenders on a big night, including poll leaders Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden.
Yang tells us how he's planning to stand out from the crowded field and why he believes his campaign resonates with so many when Rising continues.